Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Joanna Ho. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. Tsai Ing-wen apologizes after her party suffers landslide defeat in Taiwan elections, while rivals Kuomintang welcome rising star in Taipei. Lawmakers blame government for letting the city's power companies maximize profits amid economic hardship. And protests erupt across China over zero-COVID policy and a deadly fire in Xinjiang. Taiwan's Tsai Ing-wen has resigned as head of the Democratic Progressive Party following a landslide defeat in local elections. Her governing party has won only 5 seats in its worst showing in more than 3 decades. Maximise reports.
In a somber mood, Party Chairwoman Tsai Ing-wen and Secretary General Lin Siyao apologized to supporters following their landslide defeat.
不如预期，我们虚心地接受选举的结果。
Describing the results as unexpected, Tsai said she would take responsibility by resigning as head of the governing Democratic Progressive Party. In the race for city and county leaders, the Green camp was only able to retain seats in Tainan, Kaohsiung, Chiayi, Pingtung, all south of the island. It lost power in Taoyuan and Keelung, but flipped a seat in outlying Penghu County for a total of 5 seats, 1 less than the previous term. The Kuomintang retained their dominance by controlling 13 areas, including wins in pivotal Taipei and New Taipei cities. Winning over 40% of votes, Wayne Chiang, the great-grandson of former leader Chiang Kai-shek, will become the next Taipei mayor. "We did it," the 43-year-old proclaimed on stage. The rising star, said to be the youngest mayor in Taiwan's history, will help the Kuomintang rule Taipei again after 8 years. Newly elected winners wasted no time thanking their supporters this morning. Several analysts said cross-strait relations were not the center of this election. Instead, voters were more concerned about Taiwan's internal issues, and it was too early to tell how the results will sway the leadership race in 2 years' time. Others blamed the Democratic Progressive Party's agendas for its worst showing in 36 years. Taiwan expert Sung Wen-ti wrote on social media that the party backfired with its push to lower the age of voters, as the proposal, while vetoed, was also supported by Kuomintang. Sung added the DPP's nationalism agenda had diminishing return, while excessive mudslinging led to voters' fatigue, as demonstrated by the low turnout. At just 61%, the turnout represented a new low. Voters also rejected lowering the voting age from 20 to 18, as the referendum fell 4 million votes short of gaining passage. Maximise, HKIBC.
In Hong Kong, lawmakers have taken the government to task on its failure to rein in the massive tariff hikes by the power companies. One is calling for broader use of nuclear power, while another even wants to introduce new players in the market. Hong Kongers will soon have to pay significantly more for electricity. Starting from January, CLP Power will raise residential tariffs by about 20% year-on-year, while HK Electric is even bumping up rates by 46%. Both companies have blamed soaring energy costs for the hike, insisting most of the adjustments were driven by the fuel surcharge. But lawmakers were not convinced, as they felt the government had failed in its role as gatekeeper. Taking to the airwaves this morning, DAB lawmaker Elizabeth Kwok took aim at the existing scheme of control agreements between the government and the 2 power companies. Signed in 2017 and valid for 15 years, the agreements allow CLP and HK Electric a maximum annual return of 8%. Kwok slammed the firms for maximizing their profits under the pandemic, but admitted they lacked incentives to tamp down charges. She called on the government to build additional nuclear power plants in the Greater Bay Area to stabilize and even lower costs.
港燈能源組合全部係煤加天然氣。
Her suggestion was echoed by Michael Tian, who pointed out HK Electric does not employ nuclear energy and was more vulnerable to recent fluctuations in global natural gas prices. The firm is more than doubling its fuel surcharge next year, compared to a 60% rise for CLP Power, which generates 30% of power with nuclear sources. Tian felt authorities should regulate the fuel mix by the two firms and urged officials to consult the public on broadening nuclear power usage.
河套區就用南方電網。
Phil Tang of the Federation of Trade Unions said neither CLP nor HK Electric should monopolize the market. Therefore, the government should consider inviting mainland firms to supply electricity in areas such as the northern metropolis or the Lok Ma Chau Loop. COVID cases in Hong Kong have dropped for the third straight day. But new infections remained relatively high at 8,033 compared to over 8,800 cases the previous day. Only 503 patients were imported. Another 20 people passed away with the virus. Hospital Authority Chairman Henry Fan, meanwhile, became the latest senior official to come down with COVID. He last attended a public event yesterday and is now undergoing isolation. Railway enthusiasts have flocked to Choi Hung Station this morning to catch the first voyage of the MTR's new trains. Jason Law, who's become an internet sensation with his frequent appearances at launch events, was among the first batch of excited passengers. Serving the Kuomintang line, the first train pulled into the station at around 8:40 a.m. and departed for Chiu King Leng minutes later. A total of 93 so-called Q trains will gradually be added to the rolling stock in the coming years. The mainland-manufactured carriages will replace the current British fleet, which have been running for more than 4 decades. The MPF authority is calling for calm after many people saw their retirement savings shrink in the first half of this year. It insisted the MPF is a long-term investment and the fund has proven to be resilient against past losses. Macy Mok reports.
Dragged down by a bearish stock market, Hong Kongers lost an average of 12.7% in their MPF savings in the first half of this year alone. That led the body overseeing the fund to call for calm. Mandatory Provident Fund Schemes Authority Chairwoman Aisha Lau emphasized that the MPF is a very long-term investment. She said in the 22 years since MPF came into force, positive returns were recorded in 14 years. Periods which saw negative returns were usually followed by strong rebounds in subsequent years. Lau advised the public to be careful about reshuffling their investment portfolio after experiencing losses, warning it could create a scenario of buying high, selling low. She added in the long term, all fund types have recorded positive returns. For example, the annualized net return for the equity fund dropped by 22.5% in the past year. But over a 22-year period, its annualized net return had grown by a modest 4.2%, while its cumulative net return even grew 1.4 times. As a general rule, Lau said diversifying portfolios can help minimize risks, while fund holders can regularly review their schemes according to their age and financial needs. Maisie Mok, HKIBC.
Protests against the stringent zero-COVID policy have mushroomed across regions in China. In Shanghai, some people lit candles and laid flowers for the victims of a deadly fire in Urumqi, which many felt was a tragedy caused by a lockdown. Asam Khan reports.
Frustration towards the strict zero-COVID policy boiled over last night in Shanghai. In a rare public show of disapproval, hundreds of residents gathered on the streets to demand authorities scrap the zero-COVID policy. Videos like this, and many other unverified ones, have popped up on social media over the weekend, but all were quickly removed by authorities as Beijing keeps a tight lid on dissent. It all started with a fire at an apartment block on Thursday night in Urumqi, capital of Xinjiang. Authorities said 10 people were killed and 9 others injured. Locals have since complained on social media that firefighters had difficulties reaching the scene, as streets were blocked under a lockdown, which had been in force for 3 months. Since the incident, sporadic protests were reported across the country, with many expressing their anger towards the stringent COVID curbs. Authorities in Urumqi denied the rescue operation was delayed or that residents were trapped, but pledged to ease the lockdowns in phases. This is not the first time Beijing's draconian measures against COVID has triggered unrest. A Foxconn factory responsible for producing Apple's iPhones in Zhengzhou was in damage control mode after thousands of workers walked out, with complaints over COVID restrictions and overdue pay. Azam Khan, HKIBC.
Very little is known about North Korean leader Kim Jong-un's personal life, but he's now offering the world a glimpse into his family. New photos released by state media showed his daughter holding his hands as they inspected a test launch of the country's intercontinental ballistic missile. The girl, believed to be Kim's second child and named Ju-wei, appeared in public for the first time last week, ending years of speculation. Why she would accompany her father at a military inspection at such a young age remains unknown. Some analysts are taking it as a signal that she's being groomed as her father's successor. On to the weather now. Sunny periods tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 23 and 27 degrees, but the mercury could dip to 15 degrees on Wednesday. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Sunday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Joanna Ho. Thanks for watching. Good night.